Well, welcome everyone. As people are coming in, it's great to have everyone here, and it's always great. It's great for me to be able to see familiar faces and connect with old friends from McKay. And my name is Bob Hsc. I'm currently the past president of the McKay board, and I hope you're having a great conference. I'm sure you are. I just finished a session that was awesome, and I'm sure you're going to get a lot of wealth of information from this session coming in. We're fortunate enough to have Whitney Dittmer, who is a McKay board member and leads our high school completion committee, as well as Tricia Kane from Leo. And we're great to have her here and presenting to you on, you're supposed to be in, if you're not in this session, you're supposed to be in this session. It's the high school equivalency update. So if you're in the wrong one, well, it's great to see you, but we'll see you later. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this. There's a couple other things that you need to know. Just remember that tonight is trivia night. So we hope that you can all come back and participate in the trivia night. And also don't forget at the end of this session, and do it at the end because it's fresh in your mind, but to rate this session. And according to Pat Brown had to help me out with this, but he says you go to your individual session, you click on the individual session, you first go to the agenda and then click on the individual session and push the button under that session that's titled rate the session. So make sure you do that at the end. I encourage you, because it's important for the McKay board to get a feel for how the conference went so that they can prepare for next year as well. And it's very valuable information on each of the sessions that we present to you. So hope you can take the time to be able to do that. Again, I hope you have a great rest of your conference, and don't forget trivia night tonight. And let's welcome Whitney and Tricia here today to talk about the high school equivalency update. Thank you very much for participating.
Hey everyone. Thanks, Bob. Thanks to everyone for hanging on to the end of the day. I know it's been a long day and we're the last session, so thanks for joining us and being here. I am the chairperson of the HSE Hsc Committee. We do meet one Friday a month in general. If you could join us, that would be great. We let's do a little. I can get my slide to change. Oh, there we go. Just going to give you a little overview of our committee. We usually are very open-ended, and our participants, and not participants, but our teachers and staff and people that join our committee are able to ask questions and really help each other to solve problems for their local programs. I found it super helpful myself. We also do some PDs throughout the year, and the McKay PDs, you always have something to take away right away and implement in your program. So if that's something that you are able to do on Friday afternoons, one Friday a month, and there are sketches available, which is pretty awesome. But we would love to have more people, more input, and just more ideas to share. So that's just kind of an overview of our committee, always trying to recruit people. The main sustenance of our presentation today is going to be a report from Tricia. She's going to give us lots of updates on HSE and testing that's been happening over the last couple of years, some data and statistics. I'm a math person, so I love this kind of stuff. I hope that you guys enjoy it too. I'm going to switch over to her presentation, so if you just give me a second. But Tricia, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
So I'd like to say hi to everybody. A lot of you, I think, know who I am by now, but if you aren't aware of who I am, more likely you probably have had some dealings with me through emails, regarding some of your students in their GED testing. Maybe they had an issue with a voucher code from the HSE to School program, or maybe you ran into an issue at the test site and they weren't able to test that day, so we had to work on getting that test canceled. That was me. So I just want to say hello to everybody, and I hope that you enjoy this information. I worked a little, it was really hard because there's a lot of data, a lot of numbers that are out there, and it was kind of hard to kind of figure out like what you all might want to see and hear about. So if you have questions, this is just really informal. You can put them in the chat, or you can, raise your hand, and we'll be more than happy to jump in and answer any questions that you might have as we go through the numbers. And I'm going to apologize up front because my puppy, she's my pandemic puppy. I've never had a dog before. She's scratching next to me, so hopefully she'll stop. I've got treats, so I'm going to try to get her to stop. Okay. All right, Whitney. So go ahead and we'll go ahead to the first slide and kind of go over my agenda. So, so this is kind of what I had kind of prepared for today. So first of all, we're going to talk about some of the statistics and some of the trends that I've seen over the past, I'd say I went back as far as 3 years, 4 years, I think in some areas, kind of looking at the information. Of course, our COVID year is going to have a lot of impacting on our testing. I'm going to go over a little bit about HSE to School, the HSE to School kind of overview, what's going on with that, why you might be seeing more delays than usual, and what my goals are with that program as well. There's been a lot of questions about Ged Manager. So I wanted to be able to provide some information about accessing Ged Manager and how you, if you don't already have an account, if you needed to create an account with Ged Manager, kind of the processes to go through with that. Also, I want to talk about HSE testing, what we're seeing throughout the state. If you're looking at becoming a testing center, I think we've got a lot of questions around online testing as well, that, hopefully I can address as well, too. And then just some news, some updates. And I think one of the questions you might have as well is about our record migration that I wanted to talk about. I'm going to save that to the end. But hopefully I can provide some answers about records and what the state's trying to do with all those old GED records that we have in boxes throughout the state. Okay, all right, Whitney, next. So, so this is information. I pulled this data directly from the reports that I found within GED Manager's reporting, their GED analytics. And I wanted to look at basically the months when the COVID hit. And I wanted to give you a picture of what we saw the year previously, what we saw during the COVID, and what we saw last year during that same time frame. And what I found interesting is that, it wasn't as bad as it could have been last year. I think we had, some issues with testing where we weren't able to get in for testing because we did have some closures. I believe it was, I'm trying to remember when that happened. It was around, I think, maybe March of last year. Again, we kind of hit that temporary where we were like, do we close things, or what are we going to do with the outbreaks that we had? So as you can see, if you look at my little chart, I like visuals, so I like to do line charts. So in 18-19, we were doing really great. I mean, like we were heading off to the races as far as testing. As you can see, we had around 14,000 tests that were taken that year. And I want to say in 1920, our record, what we show for the data is that it was going to be even, it looked like we were on trend to be having even higher numbers. And then the pandemic hit. So, and as you can see, even though we weren't supposed to be testing in April and May, some of you were testing. So we did have some test centers testing. And we were able to get some outcomes with that as well. So, so really, I guess looking at last year, we were only about 4,000 under what we were the year prior to the GED test. So overall, not too bad. I think that we are on trend. And if you go on to the next slide, I can kind of give you an idea of what we're looking like now as we're going into this year. So here we have listed our actual, our program year. So from July to June, that's what I looked at here. We have our fiscal year from or was it October 1 through September 30th? Well, this time I looked at just the program year when we're looking at our students when they're in class. So where we see right now, again, you're going to see where that COVID hit, that April, May, when everything kind of shut down. So if you look at our purple line, which is where we are at right now for 21-22, I believe what you're going to see is, our numbers in some cases are a little higher, but not exactly where we were in 19-20. So yeah, so I think we are on trend. I am anticipating we're going to have probably a lot more testers coming up. October, that 866 was just from the first part of the month. So I don't even have included in that number our last 2 weeks of the month. So that number is going to increase. And I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't almost double with our testers, which is going to, get us closer to where we were pre-COVID. So I guess we can go on to the next slide. The other thing I wanted to share with you as well is what do we look like overall with our testing and also with the nation? Where does Michigan kind of stand? Where are we at? I don't think we've talked about this. I know I haven't talked about this in the last couple of years. So, so this might be, I think, something that you might find interesting as well. So looking at the tests that were taken in 2021, these are the actual tests that were taken. There was 11,800 tests that were actually taken during that time frame. And where you can kind of see is what was our passing rate per subject, and it looks like, as Michigan as a whole, we were right on track with the national passing percentage. And if not, we were above, especially in science, which I was, kind of surprised, or not surprised, but I guess happily surprised to see that we were above that number. So that's great. We also had during our 2021 year, so this is as a state, not just our students that were within the adult education programs. So this is everybody within the state. We saw just under 2,500 credentials earned. And we also had a Michigan pass rate of 78%, which is just a 1% above the national average, which I think is really good. We're right on trend where we want to be. So that's great. So we can go on to the next slide. Okay. Now, I guess I should ask before I get into HSE to school, are there any questions? Did we have anything, Bob, in the chats about our statistics? Are we good?
No, you answered the one. There was a question, is this just Michigan? But then you showed the national average too, so that was great.
Great,
And,
okay,
and
awesome.
somebody else just commented that they were surprised that science is the highest. But
Yeah. I
you
thought
were-
that was interesting.
Yeah.
You would think social studies would be the highest.
I
That's what I thought. I don't know. But anyway, so getting on to our HSE to School program. So the HSE to School program began in 2016. For those of you who don't know about this program, I'm hoping that all of you are aware of the program. The HSE to School program is a voucher program that the state has allocated funding to allow Michigan residents the opportunity to receive a voucher code to take the official test. This voucher code can be used for one of the 4 subjects. Unfortunately, they're only allowed 1 voucher code for the lifetime of their testing. However, there are some things that they have to have in place before they qualify for that voucher code. And as the person who processes all of those codes, I've kind of revamped it over the years to try to make it a little bit more user-friendly. My goal is to not have our testers wait long before they get into testing, because I understand that testing is important, especially when you have that student in the moment and they're geared up to get it done. And sometimes when you have to wait, then it's a moment of re-engaging with that individual and trying to get them back on track. So I do try to do my best to try to have those out timely. However, there are times when I do get backed up, when I have other tasks that I'm working on that sometimes back up the system a little bit. So I wanted to give you some analytics about last year and what we looked at in the number of participants that we had in the program. So for the program, program year last year, we had around 2,300 participants, new participants to the program. So that 2,300 does not include those testers who have started prior to 2021 and we're still going through the process of earning their credential. So maybe I may have somebody on my list from 2016 that requested a voucher code and then life got in the way and now they're not, and they asked for a voucher code this year or last year and started testing again. So that person is not considered a new participant, they're a continuing participant. So we had actually number of new participants was 2,300. We have on my list of all current applicants for the HSE to School program, we have just over 6,000 participants. And those are individuals who have not yet finished testing. So, so the list is extensive. I know it's like, there's a lot, and I'm going to talk about re-engaging some of those testers that have yet to finish testing. And actually, if you look at my number, I just thought about this, our number of participants that we added and the number of those who we need to re-engage with, they kind of match. So we'll talk that later on in the presentation. So talk a little bit more about that. We also have, so voucher codes I awarded last year were around just under 5,900, which give or take a few. I think the way I award those voucher codes, it's a continuation. Those voucher codes I get at the beginning of each month, I get a list of voucher codes from GED. They provide me 600 codes. And on average, I probably go through just under 600 codes a month and processing those requests out. So it kind of gives you an idea of where we were. The reason this number is a little bit lower, of course, is because we had, a couple of slower months in there because of the COVID situation. We also had 889 participants that were in the program earn their credential, which makes sense because that's, those are individuals who actually requested a voucher code. And so they're included in that count. Now for participants to qualify for this program, I hope, I mentioned that this is a one-time opportunity for a tester per subject. However, to qualify, they have to show that they're able and ready to take the test. So that practice test score is very important. They need to earn that minimum score of 145 to be eligible. Also, as a new requirement, we added this year, Eric and I went back and forth on how we were going to handle this because of the online testing option that we have. The online testing option is that an individual can take an online test if that passing score is completed within 90 days. I believe it's 90 days of them taking the official online test. So they have to have that window of opportunity. So to make my life a little bit easier and to avoid confusion, our voucher codes cover 100% of the cost, regardless if it's in the regardless if it's at a test center or regardless if it's online. I think I just saw that 60 days. Yeah, maybe I'm thinking 60 days, but I have 90 days for our passing, but just keep in mind, so it might be 60 days when those tests may be for online testing. So I will verify that. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank on it, but it is important that those practice tests be current. I've also noticed where I'll get requests for voucher codes from somebody that tested 3 years ago and they're wanting a new code, and maybe they received a code previously, 3 years ago, and they never used it. That's fine, but I'm going to start sending out. I've started in some cases, not all, but I've been starting to send out communication to those individuals asking for new codes, asking them to please retake the practice test, especially if their test scores are right on the fence, like they're right at a 145 and they haven't taken or done anything in the last 2 years. So so please keep that in mind. Also, the request form has to be completed. So, a lot of times I'll get emails from students or from testers asking for a voucher code, and I don't have in my mailbox a request form. So I'll go back and ask them to submit that request form for me. Sometimes if you're an instructor, sometimes I'll go ahead and send you the code if you're asking for a student, but then I'll come back and say, please have them fill out that form for my files. It's just that voucher request form is an opportunity. It's more like a release for me to actually go and provide those voucher codes, because I'm actually going in and looking at test scores for an individual's account. So it's kind of like a release. So that's why I like to have that on file. Also, I wanted to, we talk a lot about GED. Hsc is also a participant in the HSE to School program. So for those of you who are offering the Hsc testing, we have to do it a little bit different. And I know Whitney can attest to some of the hardships that we had with the Hsc voucher codes. However, there are codes available. They seem to be working right now. So if you are a program offering Hsc testing and you have students ready to test, the process is a little bit different. You're going to email me directly, letting me know how many students you have ready for testing. There's a tracking form that I will send to you as well to help kind of track what those outcomes are, because Hsc and GED, unfortunately, their software is a little bit different and I can't track them the same way. So I need your help for those that are offering that Hsc testing. We do not have online vouchers for the at-home it's called at-home testing with Hsc. So at this time, however, I just found out recently that there is an option for online vouchers for Hsc. The process is a little bit different, and this is a conversation I haven't yet have had with Erica and how that's going to impact our budget. So I may have those in the future, but right now it's just for in-person testing only for Hsc. Okay. Okay. GED Manager. One of the things that I want to talk about with GED Manager is that I get a lot of questions about why can't I see my students? I want to see more people. I want to see more scores. GED Manager is an actual tool that I see a lot of programs utilizing to track their students and their outcomes for their practice tests, their official testing. Some of you may even use it for reaching out to as a recruiting tool for to have new students come into your program. It's a great I think it's a great asset. If you don't have access to it, it's something I think you should consider getting. And one of the things that I want to kind of talk about with the GED Manager is that for programs at the state level, we are only authorizing adult education programs and Michigan Works programs for GED Manager accessibility. Like somebody on the outside who may be running a tutoring program or something to that respect, we are not approving those individuals. It's only for programs through adult education and Michigan Works that can have access to GED Manager. So when to request a form, I see a lot of programs will go through GED's website to request GED Manager access. That's fine. It just adds an extra step to the process. And what you'll find is that even though you requested from GED Manager, GED then reaches out to us at our state office and asks if we approve you for access. Then you'll normally get an email from me with our application form, and you'll have to complete that application form. So what we approve programs for is called a student authorized view. So you are only going to be able to see students in your program, which means that your students have to select your program through when they set up their accounts, as that you have permission to see their test scores and their outcomes. So they have to grant you permission to see it. So if your student has not selected your program, you're not going to see their information. So they have to go in and select your program. So what does that allow you to do as well? So once you have that student authorized view, you can see everybody who's listed under your program. And you also have the option to assign and purchase those GED Ready voucher codes. I don't know if you heard Melissa's presentation today from GED, but she had kind of alluded to that. But you do have the option to purchase voucher codes directly through GED Manager now and assign those codes to your students as needed so that they can then take those practice tests. The other part of this as well is that, let's say you have multiple locations, and you want a particular you want to have access to all your different locations, you need to list those locations or you're not going to have access to those locations. One of the things that I am doing with GED Manager at this point in time is I which I need to, haven't done yet, but I've got the information, is I'm going through and I'm looking at your programs, how you're listing your programs and how they're actually listed in GED Manager. Sometimes we run into situations where your programs do not match what is in GED Manager, or your students aren't finding your program because you're listing it maybe as your fiscal office versus your actual place where you actually, provide testing, because I've seen that, and I can say just a test from different programs that I've been with, students know you as one name. So you want to make sure that your students can find you. So make sure that you're educating them and also that you're providing the correct information so that we're getting the correct information into the system. Now, if you would like a form, I left my email up there, just email me directly, let me know you want a form, and I will send that to you so you can fill it out. Processing time for this can take up to 10 days because it does go through a process. It comes back to me. Of course, I send it off to Erica for a review. And then once approved, then GED will then send you your login information. So allow up to 10 business days, but I always try to leave a little note. If you need to follow up more, just make sure you send me an email. I can always check on the status with Erica to see where she's at in the process. Yes, Bob.
There was a question. Is there any information about any of the HSE exams being offered in any language other than English beyond Spanish, like Arabic or Japanese or?
No, I've checked into that. I have not heard of anything changing at this point in time. We had a conversation about it yesterday, and somebody reminded me that in Canada it is offered in French, but I only know that to be in Canada. At this time, I only know that the two languages that are offered, I think nationally, are the Spanish and the English versions. So unfortunately, they have not, I don't think if they're working on it, they have not alluded to that or shared it with us that they are working on that, on those different testing options.
Okay. Do you want to take a couple others?
Sure.
We are recently Hsc Testing Center, Choice Center, and now students have been taking a GED test, are working toward, that's nothing. What is there was another one.
I think the question is connected right underneath that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. That was
You
me.
see-
I was trying to find out if a person
Yeah, good.
took a GED. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
ahead,
If
Trina.
they took a GED and passed it and said, oh, I think I want to take Hsc, can you use their GED pass score to transfer?
No, unfortunately, when you start a test series, you have to finish it from beginning to end. If you change during the middle of, let's say you started the GED and now you want to do Hsc, you have to start all over. We do not, state does not have anything matching. However, I have heard of other states that may provide that option, but in Michigan, we are not doing that.
We are not. Okay, thank you.
CSG.
And one other thing,
Mhm.
do you see students pursuing more GEDs or their
Or the
Hsc?
Hsc.
Yeah, what's
Well, at
going on with that?
Right. So, so talking about Hsc, Hsc testing has been kind of limited throughout the state. Primarily we're seeing Hsc more in our county facilities because of the paper-based option that they have, and they're able to take those physically in and out of the jails to do testing. But I am seeing requests come in, more questions coming in with COVID hitting, right, kind of as we were starting to pick up a little bit of pace. It kind of put the stall a little bit more on that. However, with Hsc, one of the things that they did as well, they are providing that at-home testing like GED's online or OP testing. So when I've looked at the data and the tests that were taken with Hsc, the online really picked up, and we actually, it's not as many as, GED completed, but when you look at, I think we had 2 graduate with the Hsc test series, like maybe the year before COVID. And during COVID, we had 35 that completed the test series and earned a credential under Hsc, and that was through online. So I think that with that online option, I think that you're going to maybe see more people asking about the Hsc test option. I think that it's going to, I think it's going to maybe encourage opportunities for test centers to start offering the Hsc testing as well.
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, I'm interested to see again how this year's going to kind of carry out. I didn't pull a lot of the Hsc numbers because I know that we were limited in what we had. But, I want to say, I know Holton Lake, just recently submitted their request. I think I'm still waiting on Erica to provide her final approval on that, which I don't think it's going to be an issue at all. Monroe just started offering Hsc testing primarily in the jail, but I do know they'll be able to offer it outside of the jail.
Okay,
I know Whitney up there in Iosca, she has Hsc. Believe we have it in Detroit. Is it Dearborn area? You guys will have to correct me because I have to go through and look at my Hsc test centers. But it is, sporadically throughout the state that we do have opportunities for testing.
okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Trisha, there's a few more questions. Will the voucher cover the entire cost of an online test? Beth says that she has several students that tell her that it did not cover the full cost.
It should cover the full cost. So I was told that our voucher codes are supposed to cover the full cost of the test. So if they're not, let me know. I think I've only had one email and I don't think I ever got a response back if there was any further issues. So I would assume that everything was taken care of. But I was told because our vouchers are considered 100% of the test, it should be covering it.
And then do you know if there's still an issue with test centers not offering testing in person?
As far as I know, what I've seen, if tests, I haven't heard of test centers officially closed. What I've been seeing, when I get my reports, they offer their schedules. Like I can see 3 months out to see who's scheduled up to 3 months. And I know sometimes depending on when test centers, submit their schedules, it may not coincide with the time that I get the reports. So continue, checking when you get them scheduled. If you happen to see a test center is not offering anything during that month, you can reach out to me. I can reach out to that test center, or you can always reach out to that test center directly and ask them if they're offering testing.
Okay, I see a comment that there's a testing center probably not going to open again. That's sad. Are you seeing that around the state?
I've seen a few, but I haven't gotten any, like formal, like we're not opening. And I think this is one of the problems we ran into with the new test series. The state used to be right on top of all of the testing centers that we had because, the paper pencil base, so they're constantly in auditing, if I understood the process correctly. But in 2014, when the test series changed, a lot of that started just going strictly through Pearson VUE. So one of the processes that we thought, or one of the problems that we saw, especially with COVID hitting, is our lack of communication with our test centers was really noted this past year. So, so that's one of the things that we're working on in our office, is try to be more connected with our test centers and to be able to offer support, not only to those test centers, but also to those that are testing. So I guess in answering your question, at this point in time, I'm hoping people aren't closing, but I'm hoping also that if somebody is closing, that they let our office know, and so that at least I can also communicate that with GD and that GD is communicating with me.
Yeah, it looks like Catherine's experiencing some issues too. I don't know if you want to unmute or save it for later.
Yeah, there's one testing center in particular, and I try reaching out to them. I don't know why they cancel frequently. Like maybe like they only test like 4 days a month, and they like cancel maybe one testing day a month. So like and that's huge. And they have very poor communication with students too on when they cancel. And I don't know how to contact them and say, hey, this is an issue. What's going on?
Well, one thing I would note is that when test centers, when they cancel, it should automatically, the way I understand the system to work is that when a test center cancels, it should automatically, they go into the system, they cancel their test. There should be an automatic email generated, and an email will be sent to the student with the email that they have associated with their account. So I think if I have any test centers online, you're welcome to speak up to your experiences. I also know where some will actually take the time to make phone calls. But, you know, I think that has more to do with those that are connected with, you know, when the test center is connected to their adult education program, just as a courtesy, but it's supposed to, is some type of communication should be generated that goes out to let those students know, or let those testers know that there's no testing on that day. So if you are running into that, let me know. But one of the things you can always ask your students as well, say, are you checking the email that you have used when you created your account?
Yeah, a lot of times it's like an hour before, you know, it's a really short amount of time before their testing time.
Can I interject, because I am a test center, but I mean, primarily I intended it for my own students, although certainly we'll serve anybody in the community who wants to test. But because I do so little testing, I don't have a schedule up on the site. What I'll do is I will communicate with the student who reaches out to me, and I did this recently. And we just set up a time, and then I went in to schedule it. And we just worked out a time that worked for him around his work schedule. And I'm willing to do that for anybody who's willing to drive to Warren. We're pretty close to the freeway. If you need high-set, particularly paper pencil testing that they can't do remotely, I am more than happy to help you out. Just have them send me an email.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important, is reach out to those test centers and ask, because I can't stress that enough, because sometimes the schedules aren't always, you know, up to date. It's in the system. And like you said, there are some programs that only test for their students. So unfortunately, you know, that can be a barrier, but as soon as they put in their test dates, that opens it up. And sometimes people will go ahead and schedule when they see it like open up. So, you know, we've run into that as well. But yeah, encourage your students to make sure their emails are up to date and they're using their most active email in any type of communication.
You want me to go to the next slide?
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe. Okay, so, and this is where we come into it. So I did want to talk about this issue of testing as well. I put all the contact information. So if there are programs that are running into testing issues, test center issues, and you're interested in doing your own testing, there is that option here as well. And you can offer both testing. You can offer, one test series over the other test series. The process would be, you would need to fill out our test center form. And you're more than welcome to reach out to the actual test series individual, like Adam. He's great to reach out to and talk about his test series. You can reach out to him directly before you make a decision about testing. My dog's eating my rug, I'm sorry. Stop. And then also I would start with GED. If you want to reach out to Melissa about their GED testing and options that they have, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Stephen Rinke is our person with Pearson VUE. So he would be the one that would actually, once you get to that process and you're ready to get going on your testing center, that would be the person you'd be working with directly with that option. So a lot of you may also be maybe assisting your students with testing in your center with the online option. We do not have an issue with that at all. If that is something that you're able to provide for students. But if you are providing that, that's something you could maybe recoup some costs on, because when you are a test center, you do receive some funding that comes back to you, providing that proctor for the testing. So, keep that in mind as well. One thing that I've seen with the online testing, if that's something you want to provide for students, just make sure you read through their policies and procedures, what they require, because, we've had where testers think they can get into tests, or students think they can get into tests, and then the computer's not working that day. And it's because of the firewall. It was something that wasn't foreseen, and now that person can't test. And then he's considered a no-show. So if he's paid for the test out of pocket, he may not get reimbursed for that test. So are there any questions about test centers? Yes, Catherine, is your hand up? Oh, or is that my hand? Oh, that's my hand. Okay.
All
Well,
right.
I
Yes, Christy.
was just going to share, we've been remotely testing for probably about 7 months. And we've got a cheat sheet for students, and we've got a cheat sheet for staff about how to set up the computers. And we're really moving along. Students are they're finding that it's more comforting to test. And plus the fact we make them get there an hour ahead of time, and the teacher does the whole, you can do it, and kind of sets them out and sets them up. And it kind of alleviates a lot of that stress. So we're really finding great, almost every student that's tested remotely has passed a test. So we were excited about that remote option.
Right, and I will say across the state, what we're seeing with remote testing versus test center testing, online testing is exceeding test center tests right now. We're seeing, I think the last report that I ran just for the last year, we had over 6,000 Michiganders take the online test version, take an online test. And then, and in the course, there's more than 6,000 that tested, but there's 6,000 tests online, and then and then our next test center, our most popular test center was at around 4,000 tests that were offered during that year. So it is something that's going to be here to stay, I think, for the time being. But that was one of the reasons why we listened to you. We debated. We had the opportunity not to continue to allow the online testing. But, based upon your feedback that you provided to us here at the state level, Eric and I decided, yeah, let's go ahead and continue to offer this as an option. So
There was a comment in the chat about it's helpful for the testers to take the GED math section in person so they can use a calculator and a real whiteboard. What are you finding with that, Christy, or anybody else that's doing the online?
So we purchased a software for our computers that's the online online TI calculator. And we have a special textbook, and we make them practice using that in the whiteboard a lot of times before they go. And once we did that, we're seeing increased numbers passing, and again, less stress. Because if much of that is using the calculator, and if they don't know how to use the online calculator, they're going to flub.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah, and I think also what we run into with some of our test centers, they don't have to provide that calculator. And I've seen where some test centers, they don't have it, and they're stuck with taking that math test at a test center using that online calculator. And it does make a difference from using the handheld version, using what's on the screen. It's a different, thought process, I would think. But yeah, that was one of the things that I thought would have been an issue for my students if they were given that option to do it online or to take it at the test center. And the one thing too is Melissa said in her session earlier today, you can take your online test, you can take an online test, and then you can take it again at a test center. So, you can finish the series at a test center. It does, those tests are the same, they overlap. One of the things I did want to mention as well, there is a cost difference between them. So you want to make sure with those costs that, you're letting your students know, especially if they're paying out of pocket. Yeah, they're going to qualify for a voucher from the HSE program if that's what they choose to, participate in the program. But for a retake after doing an online test, it's going to be the same cost online. And if you decide that you want to take it at a test center after taking it online, that full cost is going to, be on the student to take the test. They're going to pay out of pocket that full $37.50. That retake discount only goes into effect after they've taken that initial test at a test center. One of the other nice things, because of the way it works out in the system, those of you who have students that maybe need some extra testing, maybe they're gotten to that third test and they did not pass. So now you've got that 60-day wait period before they can test. So that 60-day wait period is not in effect. They can go right from testing at a test center to taking the test online, vice versa. The only time that it takes effect is if they continue testing at a test center. They're gonna, that 60-day wait's gonna apply, and you're only allowed 2 retakes or only 2 tests online before you have a wait period to take the 3rd test if you decide to online. So I hope that makes sense to you as well. So as you're planning and looking at what your students are able and their skill levels, just make sure they're doing that online test. You want to have them fully prepared. Otherwise, the costs could be costly for them in the long run, if that makes sense.
There's a question about people that have taken the test online twice and now have to go to in-person, but there's no in-person close by. Would you suggest they open a test center?
I would say recruit somebody to open a test center in your area. Unfortunately, yeah, our hands are tied. The test centers are where the test centers are, unfortunately. They will not waive a wait period for the online test. Usually we can work with anybody who tests at a test center. You get a one opportunity to waive that 60-day wait period. But there has to be an appropriate reason to do that. And if you have more questions about it, you can email me directly about that. But unfortunately, the online is just very, very strict, and they're not going to budge on their policies when it comes to the online testing.
She says they used to have one at their districts, but it closed. So maybe trying to get that back open. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then there's another question from Kristen. Trisha, are there any updates on the age waivers? We're hearing from a lot of high school students who sort of checked out last year and now just want to take a GED or HSC test. Their classes haven't graduated, but the school district is recognizing this may be in the best interest for a student's mental health.
Yep. So definitely I am getting a lot of age waivers. 16 and 17-year-olds can apply to take the test. They do have to fill out the form. What's required is, and with that form, they have to be officially dropped from school. So they are no longer enrolled in school. So they have to have an official drop date. It does state that on the form. And it can be provided by the school, or I don't care, a student can write it in, but it is required on the form. We do ask that the school signs off on that form, as well as the parents. A reason can be given. I ask that the student or the tester provide that reason, or the minor provide that reason, so that they understand why they're taking the GED test. A lot of times I understand it's because they're behind in credits. I'd say 99% of the time it's because they're behind in credits and they're not going to graduate on time. That's a sufficient reason for everybody. And if everybody's in agreement, just send me that. If you don't have the form, you can request the form from me. I do need to update our website. I do have an updated form, but I have not gotten it over to our website. So the form that is on our website can still be used, but just make sure that you have documentation of age provided with that and just all the signatures in place. And that's usually no problem with me to waive a restriction. Also, please have if you're working with one of those minors, make sure they have a GED account already created, because that is where I have to go in and waive that restriction. So if they send the forms in and their documentation to prove how old they are and they don't have a GED account, I have to send you back a denial saying, please create this account. So, but yes, if it's, the reasons can be, if they want to put down COVID, put me behind, that's fine as well.
Or a Hsc account. We did have one of those this summer. Oh.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that you needed the account.
Yep. I need that was for Hsc, wasn't it? Or was that?
It was Hsc, yes.
Oh,
yep. So then she did awesome. So thanks.
Yeah, good.
I'm gonna go to the next slide.
Okay, so a couple things that I think is kind of interesting. Whitney has said, what's going on, any news, any updates? I'm like, I don't know a whole lot what's going on. However, this is where I wanted to talk about this push to re-engage some of our testers. I'd mentioned, how many I had still straggling out there from 2016, still needing to finish the test series to earn their credential. So I wanted to share with you, one of the things GED is pushing right now is their initiative to re-engage testers who have completed 3 of the 4 tests. So what they've done is they've created this report that I have access to, which is great. And it actually identifies who these testers are where their last location was, and also maybe a prep center that they might have provided when they are, said they wanted to work with when they initially set up their account. Some of you may already be aware of who these testers are, but I thought it was really interesting to see that, in Michigan, we have right now who have passed 3 of the 4 modules, around 4,000 testers that still have to complete the series. They have 1 test left to go. And I bet you can guess what test is left.
Math.
It would be math. The majority of them finish that math test. So, so that was one thing that I noted, but the report is really great. I can provide it. I can separate it out by counties and different areas. So we have access it to, of those testers, we have, there's just under the 4,000 mark of those needing 3 of the 4 modules. 3,800 of them have requested or said they had a prep center they wanted to work with. So again, here's an opportunity for these students to be re-engaged. Maybe they've been in your programs, maybe they never reached out to your program. There's an opportunity that maybe you guys can recruit them and bring them back into the fold and get that last test done. So if you want to report, I could do 1 or 2 things, Whitney, and I thought about this morning, is that I can either provide the report verbatim that I can give to Patrick and he can share, or if you want to email me directly, I can send you a copy of that report. It was kind of impossible for me to put it on here with the way they had it set up on GED and GED Manager for their analytics, but I just want to let you know that we do have access to that. The other, I guess, news, I kind of already mentioned this, is talking about the HSE. I just wanted to share, that they are here and they are growing in Michigan. And if you have more questions about HSE, or if you have questions about the curriculum of the materials, you're welcome to email me directly. I can share with you what little bit I know, and I also connect you with Adam. So I think last year we did have a webinar with HSE, and if you're interested in having another webinar with HSE outside of the one, I think Adam spoke at the K as well. We're more than well, I know he'd be more than happy to provide more information, for Michigan programs as much as you guys would like. So, so that leaves us with my last news, and that's with our GED's record migration. So a lot of you may have seen in the newsletter that went out, I believe it was in September, my request for GED records. So the way I want to kind of explain this is that, the state of Michigan, we have a database that has a lot of the testing scores, test scores, testing credentials that have, been inputted over the years. So from early as 1960s, 1940s, from the time that the GED started. However, not all of the information is in that database. It was around, and some of my more experienced instructors may have more knowledge about this than me, but it was my understanding with the way it was explained to me by my predecessor, Amy Heckman, is that around 2002 is when the state had some type of database. So these scores were automatically somehow inputted into our system. So then we have all records prior to 2002 should be in the state's database. Anything before 2002, we may or may not have in our database. A lot of programs were good in sending up their test scores, and then the test scores would be entered in whatever they were using at that time. And that tester or your student would then receive an actual credential from the state of Michigan, or certificate from the state of Michigan that would say, hey, we're awarding you with your HSE credential. However, because within the state, we all did different things. We had our test centers, we had our programs. Some programs issued their own high school equivalency credential, which is fine during that time. And we do look at that information as we get it in when we try to authenticate it. But what we're finding now with our technology and with everything changing and the internet, and also with our credentialing agent, trying to provide this information in a timely manner is resulting in us going back and contacting older programs, going through boxes. It's taking more time. So something that we would want to be efficient in and getting that information within a couple of days or within a couple of hours to that individual for an employment or to enroll in school. Sometimes can turn into a month of searching. So one of the conversations I've been having with Diploma Sender is that although it looks like we have probably the majority of the state's records, there's still records out there that we don't have. So what we're looking at is reaching out. If some of you I've already reached out to and probably picked up your paper copies, we want to start collecting all of the records throughout the state. So this is a task that has overwhelmed me, and as we're processing through how we're going to do this, one of the things Diploma Sender has come up with is a great tool that's going to allow us or allow you all, if you know or were a program or a test center from this time period, that have records or have records and still have records, that we get to know that you still have them. So what's going to happen is Diploma Center is creating this link that's going to allow you to go in to their system and put in what you have, where they're located. And so now we can start developing a report and finding these records throughout the state. Otherwise, it's like picking and choosing which area of the state I want to go to pick up records. So I've been to the west side of the state. I've been to Southeast Michigan side of the state. I haven't gotten up north yet. I know there's records in our UP. So it's all a matter of trying to figure out where everything is at and making sure that we have those records in our system. So with that being said, there will be an invitation coming out for you to join us in a webinar with the Diploma Center. It's going to be on November 17th at 3 o'clock. I invite everybody to attend. Anybody can attend, because one of the things I'm going to ask Diploma Center to talk about is their record retention, how they, where are our records, where are Michigan records at? How are people accessing them? If you have questions about your students, about the time frame that it takes them to get a record, this would be your opportunity to meet with Diploma Center directly. So, so that invitation will probably be coming out within the next week and a half. I want to make sure everybody gets that. And hopefully there'll be more with that communication, there'll be more direction about what, the state is hoping to do and to accomplish. So are there any questions regarding this big record migration that I'm trying to accomplish here?
There's actually a couple questions in the chat, and we have about 3 minutes left. Jennifer's asking, why is there no official message document sent to programs that a person has passed GED? It would be helpful to put that in files. Also, if you get someone that took a test or two a long time ago, there's no way to connect it to what they would be doing now. So that's like the before 2014.
I would say that primarily, so what we run into with records is that there's a confidentiality part of it. And so that's why we don't send out those records directly to programs once they've completed. And I understand that we run into a situation where, these certificates are needed for completion. However, there should be when we have that data match, I believe through MERS, it should update through their student account, if I understood how Sue does everything. So it should connect that way. But as far as their records, that's going to come directly through Diploma Center. An official transcript, as far as the state is concerned, is only recognized when it comes through Diploma Center.
And like Christy said, we ask our students to please print it for us, and it just doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
Lauren was asking about mobile testing centers. I know that there are some that go into jails. Are there mobile testing centers that travel? I don't know where they would test, but other than jails?
So like I'm thinking maybe like a library or something to that extent.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think that would be possible with GED with the way they have their system set up. That would have to, Pearson VUE would have to approve that. And as long as they approved it and you were following, all of the requirements or policies set forth by them, then that should be fine, I would think. But with HSE, one of the things, you know, because of COVID, we did run into situations where some programs were like, or, you know, some test centers were like, well, we can't test here. Can we test, you know, in this location? And HSE was open to that. I don't think we ran too much into that with GED, but other than, you know, doing the online, I would just say, somebody wanted to see the dog, so I'm like showing you. So anyway, I guess it just would vary, and it would be like the circumstance that maybe that would be something that we could offer. That
Any other questions before we go? You can unmute.
Did I talk this whole time?
You did. We
It was
ran out of
great.
time for other
was
questions,
awesome.
but this worked really well.
Yeah.
Whitney, you're-
You did a good
So
job.
Whitney, thank you, thank your committee for bringing this presentation to the McKay Conference, and Tricia, thank you so much for all the information. Very, very helpful for all our members, and we really appreciate it. Great presentation. You did a wonderful job. Thanks, and
Wow.
don't forget our trivia night tonight. Hope to see everybody there, and take care and have a great evening. Thank you.
guys,
Thanks so much, Tricia.
you're welcome. Bye.
Bye.